and welcome to Indian time again. This is the month of February, or known as KSKC, which means the coldest month of the year. A long time ago, this time of the year used to be freezing and a lot of snow. We don't hardly see that anymore, although it is cold, getting cold out there today. KSKC is kind of referring to curly. Long time ago, when a lot of women used to curl their hair, we used to say SKC, they had curly hair. And some of the elders used to say that a lot of the plants and things out there this time of the year, when it got so cold, that they would start to curl up, and that's why they call it KSKC, because it was so cold. Place names for this show, we have two new ones. One of them is we'll call Sintlapaks. Sintlapaks means the end or the beginning, and this that's what we call the Flathead or Kalispell area. Sintlapa meaning the beginning of the headwaters or the lake coming down this way. So that's what we call Kalispell, Sintlapa. The other one is Eployu, talking about a place that has whitefish, and that's what we call Whitefish Lake, Eployu. Those are the two place names that we have today. So remember those, and we'll get back to them again later in the show. The month of February, things are cold, and people are still trying to keep warm, and still telling some stories. This show we're going to follow up on the last show, because there's so many things to share and to talk about on the issues of mascots. So we continued this show with our guests, Velda, Shelby, Pierre, and Dave Daniels. Again, remember the days for Wednesday on February the 7th will be the the Salish Elders Council, Advisory Council meeting. And then the following Wednesday on the 14th will be the cultural workshop. The month of February, there's a couple of events that have taken place. On February the 15th in 1910, Martin Charlo, elected chief following the death of his father on January 10th. In 1966, on January the 19th, the death of Kootenai Chief Baptist Matthias was on that day. On the 23rd of February 1880, Harry Lambert opened a licensed Indian trading store at the foot of the lake, or what is now Polson. In 1918, the town site of Tabor was renamed Charlo in honor of Chief Charlo. That's interesting. It was in February the 26th, 1918. On February the 28th, 1935, it was the last run of the Galloping Goose, a one-car passenger train that ran on main line of the Northern Pacific Railroad tracks. Those are some of the events that took place in February. Again, the place names we have is Sintlapa and Eployu. So let's get back to what we were discussing on the last show, and that is the issue of mascots. And again, we're talking about the different views of the mascots, and we we as Native American people look at it as a dishonor when other people say it's a way of honoring Indian people. And I've said in the past, and I'll say it again, that to honor someone is to respect them. And I think that is what we would like to try to convey here on the different people that come forward to talk about this issue. It's an issue that seems to some people don't want to confront it, but to others it's frustrating, but because people aren't confronted, they're not coming forward and really discussing the issue of mascots and how it has in many ways separated or divided people on reservation schools, on the reservation itself, because of issues like this. And I think if we want to make this a better place for all, that we need to start bringing people back together, and this could be a good start towards that, to honor the people who have request that mascots such as Savage, Redskins, and whatever be removed and be replaced with something that is more pleasing to everyone. With that, we didn't quite finish listening to Pat and on his concerns and what he had to say about the mascots' names on the reservation. So with that, I think we'll just go directly back to Pat Pierre and have him finish up with what he has to say. Pat?
London Chatwin. I was talking about the Hot Springs Savages, which I was one at one time. Of course, I've been called Savage a lot of times after that, but in a different way. So, but anyhow, I always look at this particular logo, this Hot Springs Savage, as something that is very demeaning, that it at times mean-spirited, especially if you belong to the team and you're off the reservation to some other place playing. You get a lot of little things going on out there in the audience that made you feel bad. You know, they put their hand in their mouth, they do a little war whoop, you know, and stuff like that. Well, we kind of turned it around for the time being, you know, because we wanted to win a game. We didn't want that to pull us down. So we kind of just pushed it aside and said, okay, well, we're a team, we got to play, and we got to win. And but all through those years of school, you know, that is something you had to live with. And the Indians themselves didn't adopt that name. It come from the non-Indian people, the school board. Of course, there was no Indians on school boards in those times, so they didn't really have a choice. It was wrong to go that way. Today, as I look at our country, our reservation, there's a lot of us here that work hard at bringing peace and harmony among the people, the Indian people and the non-Indian, that there will be peace and harmony, that we have to live together in a community that is here, whether it's Polson, Ronan, whatever. But we need to learn to live together in peace and harmony, which we don't have today because of diversity, because of the different things that go on. Not only in the schools, but at homes. A lot of the children bring bad stuff to the schools, you know, from what they're hearing at home. So I think that the names of the schools that are using Indian preference names, that they should change. I think they should choose a name that is kind of bringing in both cultures, the Indian and the non-Indian, that they can come to an agreement and say, well, our team should be called this, and find a name that would be fitting for all peoples. That kind of brings a unity together instead of pinning down just one culture and making that name something that is not right, something that makes students sometimes feel bad when they're off somewhere, tournaments in some place, you know, and people are hissing at them and making noises that are not good. So I think we need to work at this, we need to change it, and we need to educate the public, most of all, that so they can understand what it means to the Indian person to be called a savage, whether he's on a football, basketball team, or whatever. So I think education would be a place to start so we could get it across to the people that we don't want to be called these names. We don't want our teams to be called these names because they're wrong. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't have to be going through this all through their school years. I did. And I survived, and a lot of other people, kids have survived, but they don't like it. And the feeling is the same from the other side. The non-Indian kids that just join the football, basketball teams, they have a problem with that because they feel that they're being called something they're not. Well, we felt the same way. So whatever the case is, I think that we should follow through and find some names that are going to be suitable for everyone. And that bring pride to the schools and self-esteem. And it's good for education to have self-esteem because you want to learn, you want to get ahead in time. And I think when you got a logo that's pinned on you all the time, you kind of got to fight that. And when you're in school, you shouldn't have to fight anything. You should be free to study and do your work and get through school. So I think at this point in time, as I close, I want to say, let's change these names and let's work together to do this. Let's work together. Let's come to an agreement. And from that point on, find suitable names for these teams. Lemnums.
Okay. Lemnums, Pat. With that, Velda or Dave, do you have anything to add? Any more to add?
Well, I just wanted to include a little information about the formation of the task force here on the reservation. And our energies sort of got going about a year ago after a group of students from Two Eagle River School and Salish Kootenai College started picketing at a basketball game. And even though we applaud their activism and effort, we felt that we really wanted to use that momentum and try to carry it forward in a very positive way and create a positive change for the community. And so we formed the task force, drawing in different individuals from around the reservation, and we wanted to bring about a change that would be acceptable to as many people as possible on the reservation. So what we did, we decided that we would take an emphasis that would focus on education, trying to educate people, trying to raise awareness. Tony, as you were saying, creating this awareness that, what is happening is not acceptable. And as Pat was saying, that, there's some harm being done not only to Indian students, but also to non-Indian students. And we wanted to bring that to people's attention. We wanted to call attention to the people, to the fact that it's not a form of respect to be using a name such as savages and an image of a Native American male as a school mascot. So we started to educate, have some forums in the community, both in Hot Springs and other parts of the reservation community. And in May of last year, of 2000, we were guest speakers at a district meeting held in Hot Springs, courtesy of councilperson Maggie Good. And at that time, the people who came to the district meeting were very supportive of what we were putting forward. And at that point, we kind of changed our emphasis, trying to contact the school board. We felt that we had a solid footing in the community, and so we next tried to contact the Hot Springs School Board and tried to bring this issue to their attention. And finally, those efforts culminated in October when we had a guest speaker from Wisconsin, Charlene Teeters, who came out and gave presentations to the students, and we were able to approach the Hot Springs School Board. Needless to say, we have not yet reached an agreement that would result in a change in the mascot name for Hot Springs. And we have raised this issue with the other schools on the reservation, making people aware of the issues. But at this point, we still want to continue our efforts to educate people and to try to create more momentum towards changing the mascots that are deemed offensive by Native American people in the community.
Okay, thank you, Dave. With that, we're going to take a short break here, then we'll come back and we'll see if Velda has anything to add.
The choices we make today affect our options for tomorrow. I choose not to smoke and pursued my ability to sing. I've been able to travel, make new friends, and see different cultures. Choose carefully. Don't limit your future.
Welcome back to Indian Time. And again, my guest today, the show is Velda Shelby, Pat Pierre, and Dave Daniels. We just heard from Dave more comments on the issue of mascots. I would like to ask Velda, you have anything to add to what Dave has already said?
Well, I agree with what both of our guests have spoke about, and in framing this issue, it's such a peculiar issue because, again, they're saying that they're honoring us, but it's so inappropriate to have it in an educational institution where all students are supposed to be treated equally. And as Pat was saying, we are supposed to be instilling their pride in their identities and raising their self-esteem so that they can get out there and compete in this world. And yet, we just feel so comfortable with almost name-calling. I mean, in any other institution, if a person screamed sexual harassment or any type of discrimination, there would be policy that would address the issue right there. But for some reason in our public schools and these educational institutions, our only forum are the school boards. And for the most part, it doesn't seem like the school boards are hearing us, or they're not willing to respond at this point. And so then there's these national organizations, and routinely we're monitoring through the internet all of the situations that are going on in the different schools. So on any given day, we're printing out all of these articles from all over the Midwest, from the eastern states, on what schools are doing in response to this issue. And many of the schools have chosen to drop the names, have chosen to rename their mascots, and yet we have schools like the University of North Dakota that are steadfast on maintaining the Fighting Sioux simply for monetary purposes. They have a donor who will give them money if they hold on to the name. And it's unfortunate because we rely on the educational institutions to enlighten people and to raise their awareness. And as Pat was speaking about cultural diversity, the importance of understanding and respecting. And the irony is, these are the people who are doing these things. It's the institutions and the schools who insist that they have to maintain these names to honor us, when in fact the national organizations are trying to get them to understand that Indians are people and we are not mascots. And unless the educational institutions are willing to acknowledge that we are human beings first, I don't believe we're ever going to get to that level of mutual respect where we have to learn from each other, to really truly educate each other. So we have a lot of work to do, and I still believe on the reservation it's going to begin right in the schools.
Okay, thank you, Velda. Is there any future plans that either one of you have, and that's towards solving this issue? Dave,
Well, at this point, we just want to continue our efforts to educate the community and to raise awareness, let people know that this is a form of cultural appropriation that is not, just not acceptable. That Indian people, Native American people can take a stand and reclaim what has been taken here. That this really is not appropriate to carry into the next century, this type of appropriation.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Velda, you have anything?
Well, when the council adopted the resolution to denounce the Indian mascot and logos throughout the reservation, they had intended to put schools on notice that the tribes took an official position and that we opposed this type of honoring. But in doing so, they had hoped that the Indian parent committees, the Indian education committees, and the people who work directly with the institutions would be able to start working on a plan to dispose of these names. And at present, I do know that in Arlee, the Indian Education Committee has really handled this well. The Ronan Indian Education Committee has also broached the school board on the issue. However, they haven't received any responses. In Hot Springs, the group of people who went in there last winter were unsuccessful, and the school board has chosen to retain the names. But we do believe that through an education process, through open dialogue, that perhaps the Indian perspective can be conveyed to the school board so that the school boards will take action, because they are the only authority who can resolve the issue locally, so that we don't have to go out and look for legislation or bring in any external influences. But hopefully this year the Ronan School Board, the Arlee School Board will take a position to determine if it's going to be in everyone's best interest to dispel with the names, to dispense using warriors, chiefs, maidens, scarlets. I think it's going to take a little more organizing in Hot Springs, because the people are pretty adamant that they have to retain the name Savages. A lot of the alumni and the current student body, we heard them in a couple discussions impressing on us that it is their tradition and they have accepted it as their identity. And for some reason, they hold dear to that. So we believe it's going to take a little more influence in Hot Springs, but internal organization on behalf of the Indian parents.
I'd just like to add that in functioning as a task force, one of our goals was to find out where we stood with the community and to make sure that we had community backing for what we were doing. Now, we were aware of a student survey that was done last spring, which was almost unanimous on the part of students that they wanted to keep the mascot name that they have. However, since then, we've started to see some changes in attitude, and there were a couple letters in the local newspaper by people in the community who are advocating now for a change of name. And we're concerned about this type of groupthink where everybody seemed so unified that there was no chance for people to voice an opposing viewpoint. However, we believe that there's starting to be some softening of those attitudes. And we've actually seen some indications on the school board too that there may be members of the school board who are starting to rethink their position, and that there is a hope that we can bring about a change.
Okay, thank you, Dave. We're just about out of time again, and I'd like to say a few things in closing. That I guess for the people in the general public, you need to understand that We're talking about something here that's a place name, or not a place name, but a mascot name that's fairly recent in the, 60 years or so. But we need to look beyond that to the people that have been inhabited this area for thousands of years prior to that. The Salish, Pend Oreille, Kootenai people have been in this area a long time before fur traders and trappers got here. So we're talking about a culture, we're talking about a value, we're talking about a people that have been in this area and grown up to learn about the values of respect and different things in this area. So we have a lot of people in this area that are new to the area, that have just moved here. Teachers, administrators, who have no real understanding of the culture and the history of the people that have been here. And it's more than just a name. We're talking about the human rights of our people. We're talking about the human issues of who we are as Salish Kootenai people. And we must understand that this issue is not just because of the mascot. It's what is behind that, the people themselves that are behind it, and the struggles and the efforts and the pride that we have as Native American people. That's what we want to bring forward. That is why I thank you if you think you're honoring me. But if you want to honor me with respect. And I hope that you open your hearts and take a real hard look at this issue. And with that, I would like to say, Lemdlem Chpesialu Pisan Kuskadlich, Restschalhalu Come best qoilmeitlu bin bachbachot ges kupselt ges meitlu look ex good lemlemch.